Hi, I'm Elijah Schumacher, the Black Fellow in Conservation Biology. And I did my fellowship in Sainte-Luce, Madagascar, which is in the Anosy region, which is the southeast part of Madagascar. So I worked with a program called the Azafady Conservation Program. They are a part of a NGO that's comprised of a UK branch and a Madagascar branch called Azafady. And they run a variety of programs, but the one I was involved with focuses on ecology and community building in this tiny impoverished fishing village of Sainte-Luce on the coast. And so we were looking at lemur populations and behavior, herpetofauna, which is frogs and geckos and things of that nature. And we were also teaching English and environmental education. So here's the scope of my project. It includes the biology research, the education aspect, and then also they had recently had a transition in their conservation coordinator. So they're welcoming a new view to the program. So we spent some time looking at new directions. So I'll talk about that a little bit. So to start off with the biology. Lemurs, of course, are extremely important in Madagascar. It's one of the only places in the world they exist. And so we're doing two different kinds of research, behavioral and then a population research. So for the behavioral research, we were focusing on the red-collared brown lemurs. They're very social lemurs, so they're easy to do behavior research on. You just find the troop and then sit there and watch them for an hour or run through the woods chasing them for an hour. And then we did the population research on 3 different species of lemur. The woolly lemurs, which you can see right there, it's one of them. Then some other guys called fat-tailed dwarf lemurs, and then a undetermined species of mouse lemur. And that pretty much constitutes walking on transects through the forest and just finding the lemurs, noting their habitat and things of that nature. Another important animal in this region is a little gecko. Looks kind of like that guy right there, called Phelsema antinouche. There are only about 3 populations of this gecko in southeastern Madagascar. And there's a mine operating in the area, the QMM mine, who are extracting ilmenite, which is just the mineral in the soil. And that means they have to clear the woods and then dredge mine. And one of the populations of Phelsema is going to be extirpated due to the efforts of this mining company. So it's become a priority to translocate these guys. So we spent a lot of time doing population research on them, finding out where they are and their population dynamics, and then looking for suitable habitats to move them into in other areas. And then I personally also conducted some research on the pandanus plants. And these geckos are specialists on the pandanus plant, so they can't live anywhere else. They can't live on other things. They have to be with the pandanus plant. So I looked a little bit at that dynamic. The educational component. We taught English in 2 levels, beginner's English and then a slightly more advanced English. And I taught beginner's English with my site mentor, Matthew Manners, that guy right there. And that was extremely challenging, of course, because we spoke very little Malagasy and they spoke very little English. But it was a lot of fun and it was very, very rewarding. And then we also did environmental education, which basically is composed of just simple ecology, looking at food webs and things of that nature, talking about sustainability, and cultivating an appreciation for some of the really rare things that Madagascar holds, like lemurs and the Phelsema that don't occur other places in the world. So as far as looking at new directions for the program, in one of the areas that's about to be mined, there is a flying fox colony that the mine hadn't reported in their biology reports of the area that they have to complete in order to be able to clear the woods. So we kind of discovered that. Well, we didn't discover it, but we have started making steps towards doing something about that. We also conducted some turtle surveys to see whether what the concentrations of sea turtles are in the area. And also this mouse lemur, called Microcebus is the genus name. They're not quite sure what species is there, so they're talking about setting up hair traps to catch some fur off of them and hopefully identify the species. And finally, there's another gecko in the area, that guy, called Matotoa spanringi, and there have only been about 10 of these discovered anywhere in Madagascar, which is, of course, the only place that they exist in the world. And 2 were recently discovered in this area by Azafady, so that's become a priority. So what did I learn? Intellectually, I learned a lot about the Malagasy wildlife. I was exposed to ecosystems that are incredibly diverse that I had no experience with before. Also an entirely new language and culture, and the Malagasy culture is just really beautiful culture, very community-based, and very based on sharing amongst each other, which is something that we're losing a little bit in America, I feel, so that was wonderful to be exposed to. I also helped hone my research skills a bit, and I got a real feel for the complexity of conservation issues. There are no easy solutions, and there's not just 2 aspects to any issue, there's just a huge range. Personally and professionally, I learned how to be very adaptable. What do you do when you're teaching English to these Malagasy kids and your translator doesn't show up? You just have to pantomime a lot. And that actually turned, it was a really fun lesson. We did the hokey pokey, it was great. I also learned a little bit about networking and making professional connections. And actually the current conservation coordinator, Sam Roberts, who's just a phenomenal guy, wrote me a letter of recommendation that has helped me get an internship that I'll be doing over the summer. So that was really nice of him, and that was great. And then I also learned how to navigate air travel. I jumped out of the last airplane I was in, which is actually the only one I'd been in before, so that was kind of a big thing for me. In terms of the internship impact, academic impact, I did my biology 485 on my pandanus research, and then this is also the basis for my environmental studies capstone. And I'll be presenting on that research at the student symposium in a week and a half. Professional impact, I was able to make some connections to field biology, and I was able to get a real firm idea of what some of the real life challenges are facing conservation biology. It's very difficult to find solutions, and I get a little bit of a taste of that. And I was able to cultivate an interest in island biogeography. Madagascar, of course, is just an extremely fascinating island. In terms of future impact, I feel that this is really directing my career trajectory. I hope to work in conservation biology. And most importantly, probably, is it gave me a sense personally of my place in the world. Of course, as somebody in an institution of higher learning in America, I'm an extremely privileged individual. And there's the tendency to kind of abstractify that and not see that as a tangible reality. But when you see extreme poverty and the symptoms of political and ecological instability in real life, that really struck a chord for me. So that was a very important part of this experience. Lastly, I'd like to offer a hearty Misocha Betsika, which of course means thank you very much, to the Fellows Program here, to Mr. and Mrs. Black, who are my donors, to the wonderful Career and Civic Engagement Center staff, further to the Azafady Conservation Program staff. They were all excellent. And of course to these 2 guys, Hubi and Saraiki, who were our guides, and really, they were just incredible. And then also to my site mentor, Matt Manners. Also to my Cornell College faculty sponsors, Tammy Mildenstein, who is the sponsor for my environmental studies capstone, Marty Condon, who helped me with my Bio 485, and Bryak Noack Thompson, who is my academic advisor. Thank you so much to them. And lastly, to my family and friends who have supported me every step of the way. Thank you very much.